It's episode 3 of Agency Intensive. I'm Richard Hill, your host. In this episode, I speak with author and ex-agency founder Richard Mawer. We step through Richard's early days as an agency owner, navigating those initial hurdles, Richard's process for nurturing leads for clients and for the agency, Richard's tool set and tech stack, which is very similar to our own, building trust and partnerships, and Richard's new journey as an established author. And this is his new book. Absolutely recommend it. Get it bought. And so much more in this one. Now, do me one favour. Hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Welcome to the show, Richard. How are we doing?
Very good. How are you, Richard?
I'm
Thanks for inviting me on.
Very happy. Now, Richard, we've sort of skirted around Lincolnshire together for the last probably 10 years, and we only met properly about a month ago.
About a month ago.
But obviously we're in a very similar place, and I thought I've got to get you on the show, so thank you for coming in. And
pleasure.
And coming into the Agency Intensive HQ. Yeah. So I think it'd be great for you to introduce yourself to our listeners, and how you started your agency and how you overcame those maybe initial hurdles in the first few months and years.
Yeah. Well, my name's Richard Mawer. I currently run a consultancy, Ignite Growth, as a consultancy, but I ran, as you say, an agency for 7 years, Digital Media Edge. We were local to you in Lincoln, covered the whole of the East Midlands, very, very much B2B focused agency. And what brought me into the agency world was I'd been in marketing and sales my whole life, really. It's been my... growing up, I'm 55 now. I think from the age of about 19, 20, I really came into this world, went into direct sales. From the back of sales, it was obviously, how do I get better leads, which took me into marketing. And then from there, I've really gone through 7, 8 businesses now. I've had a career really as an entrepreneur, just setting up my own businesses. I always say to people, I'm not a great employee. I am someone who very much, you'll relate to it then, very much I have to, control the areas that I know I'm really good at and give as much value as I can to people. So I tended to work and do my own marketing in my own businesses, build those up. 3 or 4 of them have got past the 7-figure mark, so it was something I was getting very good at. I also worked with a lot of corporate clients, so I worked in the legal sector for a while. I was here at Sills and Betteridge in town here, which was a period of employment when I was their head of marketing here. On the back of that, I actually then went into my passion, which was horse racing. So I'd always loved my horse racing, but I felt they weren't very good at marketing their products. They were a bit behind the times, a bit old-fashioned. So my brother was the head accountant over at Southall, still is, over at Southall Racecourse.
Oh, yeah.
So we started developing their website, showing them how to use social media. We got very much into email marketing. So that was sort of my background, and I set up a company called Racing Profits Guides, which was really built around developing guides to racecourses around the country. So we ended up with 15 websites. We covered Cheltenham, we covered Doncaster, York Racecourse. We sponsored a lot of races on the racecourses. So we really got involved in the whole industry. And people came to us really for help with their own social media, their own marketing, which created a sort of a virtual agency, which we hadn't really planned on doing. But that's how it developed. To the point where Betfred, the bookmaker, approached us to run Tote Pool. They'd just bought Tote Pool on the courses, and Fred wanted me to basically run all of his social media campaigns for Tote Pool. So that then really led to a far more strategic approach to marketing, looking at the overall revenue goals for the business, breaking that down yearly, how many leads we had to generate to hit those goals. Customer acquisition became far more of a scientific process. And that really was where Digital Media Edge came from, because other businesses outside of horse racing were starting to notice us. So I switched really when the growth of football as a betting medium came. I knew my days were numbered in horse racing, because that isn't really how your first person finds out about betting anymore. It's through football, it's through MMA, things like that. Even darts had become so. So we sort of shifted and pivoted again into Digital Media Edge to use what we'd learnt, but to really become a very strategy-first agency. We weren't sort of selling our skills as SEO or web designers or any of the other number of skills. We were selling it as a growth agency, and that really fitted our model. We really wanted to go down that route.
Love that story, Richard. I didn't know some of those things. I know when we first met very, very briefly at an event, I think maybe 4 years ago, just in passing, really. And then I remember Googling your name and I saw the horse racing thing. I was like very intriguing. I think it's great. Most obviously agencies start with, I think, quite often, you've got an interest in something yourself, and building something for you. And then somebody says, oh, can you help me with this? Which they did. And you go, well, go on then, let's have a look, sort of thing. And the next thing, fast forward, whether that's a month or a year or 3 years, that starts to become, actually, it's interesting, isn't it? You obviously I can obviously listen to you, the real passion for the sort of B2B side, and obviously knowing a bit more than we've said yet about what you've done. But, how do you juggle working on brand building and direct lead generation in your sort of agency? Because I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, and I think in the early days of an agency, I'd say up to that first 7-figure mark, all my focus is on lead gen and customer acquisition.
Yeah.
The brand is sort of a side product because of us helping our customers be successful. And that's what I always said to the team in DME. Daniel Priestley has this maxim, make your customers the stars.
Yeah.
And it's so true. If you get success for your customers, you become known for that.
Yeah.
So our brand was always in our goal always, as we were building towards 7 figures, was get that lead gen machine working. Every one of our lead sources, we were constantly optimizing to make sure we knew our ROI on spend on Google ads, on Facebook ads, the way we were generating leads then, and then have really the brand built on the back of that. So when we're thinking about building a brand, we're always thinking about our philosophies, our brand. People come to us for a reason because of the way we do something. And that's really how you can differentiate. And I talk about it in my book, as I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. But in my book, I always say that being remarkable at something is a real differentiator. And that's how you really command bigger money. If you're going to ask for bigger retainers, you've got to be in a niche on your own. You've got to target a niche, but you've also got to differentiate how you deliver your service. And I think that's super crucial to any agency owner that's listening or watching this, that they really focus in on that brand is part of it. But when you're building to £1 million, spending a fortune on brand and a lot of your time on brand isn't as important as focusing on lead gen, making sure your sales process is very, very structured, as I'll talk about later. And all of that will help you grow, and your brand will be growing, obviously, about your identity will be a part of your brand. How you do things is part of your brand, and that's important because it also, when we get onto recruitment, it attracts people to you. You do it very well. I think I watch you all the time. And I think if I was recruiting or if I was coming for a job, you'd know what culture you were coming into here. But that's all because of the way the brand's been developed. So it is important. But I always say it depends where you are in your growth.
It's difficult, isn't it, in those early days, those early days of getting to the million or getting to, obviously, you've got to pay the bills, haven't you? That's the reality of life, and it still is, even in, multi-million-pound agencies in a challenging year. So it can be difficult sometimes to get that split. But I think let's jump in on the book. So Remarkable Business Growth.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you brought us a copy about 3 weeks ago. It's probably the nicest laid out, smartest, intelligent book I've read in a long while.
Oh,
thank you firstly for bringing that in.
Yeah.
But I think for the listeners, it'd be good for you to, in terms of I think, go and buy it, guys. But for your sort of, what would you say about obviously positioning you and your agency?
Yeah.
The guys that are maybe thinking about writing a book.
Yeah.
Obviously that has a certain level, doesn't it? When you're going into a organisation and you're an author and you've got you're a best-selling author.
Exactly, yeah. Amazon bestseller. And it was really, what changed my view on it was I went on Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence Accelerator. So it's a 12-month accelerator, quite expensive, $7,000-8,000 to go on it. But what he really focuses on is on the different P's he has. So pitch, publish, profile. And during profile, he talks a lot about his books and the power of his books to open doors, to naturally get you trust and authority straight away.
So how long did it take you to do the book then?
I think from start to finish, I started in the May 2022 and I'd
Deep lockdown? No, not quite, is it?
No, I was way after
lockdown. Yeah.
So I started in May, and I literally went away to Yorkshire, booked a cottage, took my dog with me, and did the whole writer's thing of just locking myself away for a week, and just 3,000 words in the morning, 3,000 in the afternoon, and just really that week broke the back of it. I got
just lock yourself. That's a good. I like that.
Yeah. And the publisher I used, she was really good at sort of giving you guidance on how to structure your chapters, what each chapter had to contain. So I had the topics I was going to talk about already as headings, and it's literally pull a topic out, bash away 1,000 words, next topic 1,000 words, and it was a really natural process, but it was also 25, 30 years of growing businesses pouring onto the page. She said, don't do a bit of research. I want it all out of your brain.
Yeah.
It's your methodology. It's your framework.
So start to finish then, how long?
I think it took me about 4 months, 5 months.
That's incredible. I thought you were going to say quite a lot longer than that.
No. Well, I really went for it because I knew if I was trying to allocate an hour a day to do it, I'd never get it done. I'd still be trying to write it now.
So you went away on your own.
Yeah.
So for how long for, sorry?
That was a week.
Yeah. See, that in itself sounds like a worthwhile exercise.
It was. And I think
having a week on your own, just your thoughts, and whether that's a project with a book or a project for working on the business.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in having trips, away. I make a point of booking.
Yeah, well, one of my favourite books is Cal Newport's Deep Work. His whole thing is getting rid of all distractions, going really deep on topics, and your most vital topics. The things that are going to earn you money, or the things you must get done. Yeah. So that's what I knew. The book was one thing that was a non-negotiable last year. I wanted to get to a point where it was launched this year. We went through a number of drafts after that first 4 months, so it wasn't just 4 months and that's it.
Yeah.
We probably went through 5 or 6 drafts, then got the design of the book cover, then set a launch date for the Kindle version to be launched, and then the paperback version was about a month after that. So
in terms of, obviously, you're working with a publisher, probably the second point. Is that somebody you knew, or was it recommended to you? How did you find that publisher, and how did you sort of decide on them?
I was using, actually, Daniel Priestley's got he's actually a part owner of a publishing house in Norwich, Rethink Press. So some of his books you'll see are with them. I went through their initial training. They did a 3-day book writers course, things like that you got for free if you're on the accelerator. So I did all of that.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I just felt like a sausage in a sausage machine. I thought, this isn't very personal, and I'm very much, as you can probably tell, about that personalisation, making everything very personal to people.
Yeah.
So I felt it was just going to be an order on demand. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be printed as people order it. So the publisher I was recommended was actually specialised in business books. Alison Jones, she's called, from Practical Publishing. You'll see her on the back here. Practical Inspiration Publishing. And she had a small house of authors, about 40-odd authors. She'd come from Penguin background, some of the big publish houses, and then set her own boutique publishing house up.
Nice.
And I had a chat with her for an hour.
The fit.
Just really felt it was a good fit. Her advice was spot on. Every time I needed advice, they were there for me. Very much a personal service. But she was going to get thousands printed so she could get them into Waterstones, get them into the universities. She's very big on having them in libraries at universities for people, and internationally. She's got distribution through Europe, distribution in America, distribution in the Middle East and the East, and then she goes right through New Zealand and Australia. So to me, I thought, if I'm going to do it, Richard, I've got to do it properly. I don't want to just...
I think this is the thing. I think most agency owners will know there's publishing a book, and then there's publishing a book. You can obviously go on Amazon, publish. There's an amusing story of somebody published a book on Amazon and turned it into a bestseller.
Yeah.
But when he went and bought it, it was actually nothing in it. It was completely blank, and he just did it as a bit of a gimmick, but also to sort of maybe shine a spotlight on publishing books. But obviously, publishing a good book and putting the time into it, which clearly you have.
Yeah.
Obviously, what that's doing, in my eyes, and hopefully there's a reason you've done it. Obviously, it's positioning you.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the years of experience, it's like, bloody hell, this guy knows his stuff. But ultimately, the quality, the way you do something is the way, in theory, you do everything.
Yeah.
So I think, the guys that are listening, I think one of the big topics, and I think this sort of brings into it. This is, so in theory, then hundreds, if not thousands, of people buy the book. And then you've got You know, you've got people that are interested in you, interested in your brand, interested in your agency, but turning those sort of marketing qualified leads into sales qualified, that's almost like what's the word I'm looking for? It's literally like the gold mine within the agencies. Agency life. Obviously, generating leads can be quite easy-ish, but obviously the right kind, the right ICPs and so forth, and then converting them into sales qualified, and obviously then converting them into customers.
Yeah.
Now, I know this is probably one of your, listening to you and knowing some of the things you do, one of your big areas, this sort of, the different, we used to have a funnel there, but the different nurturing things that you do. You know, what sort of things would you recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, well, I think, and obviously, when we were an agency, we spent 5 years as a HubSpot agency as well. So that's something to say that the training you get as an agency, being in a big organisation like HubSpot, is second to none. Yeah. And their sales, their customer acquisition, and their whole inbound methodology is that you should be attracting good fit people into your agency. You know, that's how you attract your clients. You don't go after everybody. You don't go broad.
So that goes back to that, you know, you're a very specific type of client that you're after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or e-commerce only, do, you know, it's a very specific service, very specific ICP that you're after, rather than we'll take anything.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, one of their favourite sayings is, who are you going to be a hero to? As your agency, who are you going to be a hero to? You know, and they make you think this through. And we actually went across to Dublin and spent time with Dan Tyre, who's written the foreword of my book, actually, but he's the sales director for HubSpot. Fantastic. I mean, we just did 3 days of intensive where he went through how you identify the right type of prospect for your business and then how you connect with that person. You know, we talked about good fit matrices, which is something I give a tip in my book. I talk about it, but I also talk about it to every single customer that we have. Is basic, especially if you're running an agency, you should have in mind who's a good fit for what you do. You know, and if you look through your last 100 clients, there'll be someone who'll stand out. You know, everyone says, oh, we're good with everybody, but you're not. If you actually go through the figures, where you made the most money, who you enjoyed working with, you know, who you got the best results for, you know, you'll always come out with someone who'll stand head and shoulders above everyone else. And that'll probably be a sector or a vertical. So we do really well with manufacturing businesses, and it's the marketing managers within manufacturing businesses. We're really good at generating them leads. Yeah. And you're really trying to make them look good in their job, you know, and that's what I think we always used to drill back to. Who are we a hero to? What can we do for them? How can we make them look good in their boss's eyes? You know, because they're going to be probably the person who's bringing you into the business for the initial conversation. You know, and that's, I think, who you've got to be in front of all the time. Yeah. You know, and if they're engaged with you as an agency as well, so if they're consuming your content, if they're actually in your ecosystem already, so they're a good fit and they're engaged with you, that's how we'd have our matrix set up, you know, because you'll basically have 4 quadrants in any good fit matrix. They're a good fit, but they're not engaged with you. They're a good fit and they are engaged with you, or they're a bad fit, not engaged, or bad fit and they are engaged with you. Now, your bad fit and are engaged with you people are usually good people to be your promoters. They're people out there who love what you're doing, but they're maybe not a great fit to be a customer. But it doesn't mean you turn those away. Yeah. You know, a lot of them are students from university. Like in Lincoln, we had loads of people coming through our website, and you probably do yourself as well, who are engaging with your content. They're sharing your posts, they're commenting on things. You know, now you don't want to ruin that relationship. They're not going to make you a lot of money, as in direct money, but actually that's, you know, something worth.
That's an interesting one, because I think you know, we're 14 years in, and I think, you know, I see these obviously very smart guys and girls coming from university, you know, and okay, they're just starting on their career, but I think trying to help those guys, it sounds like, oh, well, hang on a minute, we're after firms that are doing this, but these guys that are coming through are the new marketing managers in time, you know, and I can think of clients we've got now that I can think exactly of a lady that is head of a 300-person strong Lincoln organisation. And maybe 8 years ago, she was at uni. Yeah. And she came to one of our events, you know, and she'd not been out of uni probably about 8 months, you know. So
as an agency owner?
So I had my agency then. Right, she was at an event, like a taster event that we do, masterclass that we do now, as we call it now. Yeah. We used to run an event called... what's it called now? It's SEO Traffic Lab Live, I think it's called, off the top of my head. And she came to that event, and she went to work here, there, and a couple of places, and now she looks after 2 big brands in Lincoln, and she's a very good client of ours. Mm-hmm. So you just never know as well, do you?
No,
obviously, in the moment, it's trying to differentiate, but doesn't mean to turn off completely.
And I think the danger with running an agency is you want to take every single job, and I think that's just a recipe for disaster. And the number of people I've seen doing that, and that's what HubSpot, are really good at teaching you not to do. They say, get your good fit matrix, and then it should be binary. Yes, they're a good fit, or no, they're not. And that's what they always say.
So working on attracting and converting more good fit, rather than obviously taking business for the sake of it, which usually leads to churn and not maybe a right fit relationship or workflow, and then it's just obviously going to be a bit of a hamster wheel. And I think that's one of the things that can keep a lot of agency owners up at night. Is there... if somebody asked me this question on a podcast about 2 months ago, what keeps you up at night? What keeps you up at night, Richard?
I think the only thing that keeps me up at night is people who are very tactical thinkers and not strategic thinkers. And I think about this a lot because we always said that strategy should drive your tactical execution on a daily basis. But there's so many business owners and agency owners I meet that have no plan at all. They've no strategy in place. Everything is happening to them on a daily basis. It's not like a proactive approach. So my client work now on a consultancy basis, the first 3 months is spent putting in place that detailed strategy. And in the book, I break down 12 areas that you must have in your growth strategy, the metrics that you're going to be measuring to see if you're on track or off track with that. But that dictates your daily, it dictates everything from your lead sources you're focusing on to what metrics are important to measure. In e-com, all the different metrics you have to measure, but all of this should be driven by your strategy. There shouldn't be any chance. And I always and we used to do this with DME as well when we ran the agency, we would sit down with our clients and get them to tell us their specific growth goal revenue-wise. Where do they want to be in 5 years, but where do they want to be in 12 months? And that to me was a really important figure. Because for one, in my sales process, we always anchored to that. So if I can get you to that, Mr. Prospect, is it worth paying me this? And I still do it now with my consultancy work. I've done it recently with somebody who were trying to get to 7 figures. And I said, it sounds a lot of money you're going to pay me, but if I get you to 7 figures and then beyond that, and that's a really, to get that strategic mindset and to talk about specific growth goals is something that I didn't see many other agencies doing. At the time,
I think that's great.
Agencies were offering a service, and they tried to sell it to as many people as possible. But actually, I thought, no, if we think strategically, then they're going to be with us long term. We help them get some of these milestones hit.
So we're probably talking there an element of forecasting, talking to a client and a potential client, a prospect. Future pacing, obviously what life's going to look like in 12, 36 months.
Absolutely.
And putting a forecast together and giving them a vision, a taste of a vision. But obviously backing it up with specific, we say,